I'm Glenn Washington, host of Snap Judgment, the award-winning storytelling podcast from KQED. Every week, Snap deals a new card, like the girl whose sister was a monkey, the man who lived in the woods for 30 years, or the woman who snuck her lover out of prison in a dog crate. Pick a card, any card. Snap Judgment from KQED. New episodes every Thursday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, there's that song that I love. Hey now. How you doing, everybody? Welcome to a very special episode of Scott Fox After 9. I had every intention of taking the month of August off, but frankly, I can't sit on the sidelines any longer while everything that's happening right now is happening to our country. Right now, Canada is in a trade war with the Americans. We're going to match their tariffs dollar for dollar. And on this episode, you're going to hear exclusively from the Prime Minister. But I also want you to know I'm going to release a series of episodes. They may come out more than once a day. You're going to hear this episode, which is all about Prime Minister Carney. You're going to hear an episode with the premiers, in particular, Premiers Ford, Canoe, Eby, and Smith. That's going to be a great episode, too, because I think the premiers are playing a much bigger role in what's going on than what we're being led to believe. And let me tell you why I think that before I get to the Prime Minister. When I went away, Mark Carney was preparing to go on a Tuscan vacation. And I thought, well, the guy's entitled to a vacation if he's going to Tuscany. I assume things are going pretty well. Then we heard there's a deal in principle between Canada and the U.S. The Prime Minister congratulated the negotiating teams. He was ready to sign that deal. Then he met with the premiers. And after that, the whole thing blew up. Friday night, we got word Canada is walking away from negotiations, recalling the negotiating team from Washington back to Ottawa. We're going into a trade war with America. On this episode, I want you to hear in the Prime Minister's own words why that's happening. You're not seeing it on the news. The guy spoke for 51 minutes, and you're seeing little clips on the news. If you want to be fully informed on what's happening, I think you should listen to the next few episodes of the pod. I encourage you to hit subscribe so that when new episodes come out, you get a notification and you can listen when you want. This is a serious situation because we're imposing counter tariffs, and a tariff on America is a tax on Canada. The cost of living is about to go way up because of this trade war. Last thing I want to get out there before I get to the Prime Minister, I want to declare I have a bias. I wish more media people would do it. I think it's dishonest if they don't. Here's my bias. I'm a conservative. I look at things through the lens of a common sense conservative. Now, I'm going to do my level best to be objective and fair, but you need to know that I do have that bias. You can watch the news all you want. You're never going to hear that reporter say, by the way, I'm a card-carrying member of the Liberal Party and I dine with Liberal members of Parliament all the time. They're never going to say that, but they do in some cases. It's dishonest to not declare your bias, so that's mine. I'm a conservative. What you hear is coming from the lens of a conservative. But again, I'm going to try and be as objective as possible because I care about what's going to happen here in Canada. I care about the middle-class Canadians that are being sent to war while the politicians that are sending them there, they aren't going to feel this nearly as much as people who are struggling to get by. So now, with all that preamble out of the way, here is Prime Minister Mark Carney this past Saturday.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. I'd like to take this opportunity to update Canadians on developments in our trade negotiations with the United States. I'm going to go through why we're walking away from a bad deal and what comes next. We can't control the storm that blows in from Washington. We can, however, chart a new course by building Canada strong at home and diversifying our trading relationships abroad. For over a year, Canada has worked intensively and in good faith with the United States to negotiate a new comprehensive trade deal. We've been pragmatic, patient, and persistent. We pursued every opportunity to reach an agreement that protects Canadian workers and their families, that strengthens our economy, and that respects Canadian sovereignty. We've been under no illusions. We recognized from the start that America has changed. Early last year in this room, I observed that the decades-long process of steadily increasing integration between our economies was over. Our government understood before many that America would transform all of its commercial relationships, that it would put a series of tariffs on its closest allies and use economic integration as a weapon. We recognize that sometimes its signature was written in pencil. We worked in that context to try to strike a fair deal on which Canadian businesses and workers could rely. Our goal has always been to get the best deal for Canadians, never a deal at any price or on any time frame. Last month, when the United States announced another round of unjustified tariffs, I gave our negotiating team a new mandate to seek a fair deal negotiated in good faith. Because I believe that people on the ground, on both sides of our border, want this relationship to work. The bonds between Canadians and Americans are long and they remain strong. A mutually beneficial trade agreement is possible, one that respects our sovereignty, one that builds on our complementary strengths, one that lowers costs for families on both sides of the border, one that creates good jobs for our workers. Canada has always worked towards these goals, even while America's attention and dedication to them have wavered. We've consistently proposed long-term partnerships, while America has often pursued short-term transactions. The gap between partnership and competitor, unfortunately, has remained too wide in recent days.
That is the first part of Prime Minister Carney's address to the nation Saturday morning. So far, he hasn't really said anything. It sounded good. A lot of strongly implied things there, but nothing actually said. So far, all he's done is a quick recap, and I don't even really disagree with his assessment, except where the Prime Minister said that Canada has worked for a long-term strategic partnership. Because for a very long time, we did a lot of things that did not necessarily suggest we wanted to be partners. We banned their alcohol. That was a controversial subject last week when the premiers were apparently asked by the Prime Minister to put U.S. booze back on the shelf. That was a debate that Canadians had again, and frankly, I don't know if we've come to any resolution there. Seems like we're very divided on whether or not that should have been something that the government did. But keep in mind, the U.S. never banned our alcohol. Canada and China are the only two countries that retaliated. Canada and China. The Prime Minister is going to, when he gets to the Q&A, going to talk a little more in depth about what was on the table. But I also want to remind everyone, it's really not practical or smart right now to form a full opinion on this situation without knowing what we walked away from. Canadians deserve to see the deal that was on the table. We deserve that. We're being asked to sacrifice a hell of a lot when those new tariffs kick in. We should know what the offer was. We should be able to understand exactly what it was that the Americans put on the table that the Canadian government said no way to. Now, there are rumors floating around out there that the silly little detail that gave the Prime Minister the out that he might have wanted was a simple request from the Americans to review whether or not American products being shipped into Quebec need to have bilingual labeling. That's considered red tape. It's considered a trade barrier. There's a thought here. This is the rumor floating around, and I can't independently corroborate it because the Prime Minister hasn't released the deal that was on the table. If we blew this up and go to 50% matching counter tariffs over something like labeling products in French and English, without even considering some alternatives or discussing that. That is going to be a decision that Canadians will judge this Liberal government on. And they're going to have to. What did we say was so bad that 50% matching dollar for dollar tariffs is the better alternative? The estimate is that Canada's about to lose 90,000 jobs. If you lose your job, are you willing to say, that's okay, I don't care that I lost my job, I'm doing it to fight Donald Trump? Or the other option here is that this government do exactly what it was elected to do, to work out a good, fair deal with the Americans. Keep in mind, they wanted a deal too. We just couldn't reach an agreement here. And if the Americans were being unreasonable, then yeah, we should have walked away. But we should know what the offer was. Let Canadians make that assessment. Let's have a national conversation about that. Here's more of the Prime Minister.
So last evening, I instructed our negotiators to return to Ottawa. We cannot accept what they've offered, and we will not give what they've asked. Over the past year, the U.S. has imposed a series of tariffs that violate its commitment under our agreement with them in Mexico, so-called CUSMA. The United States has continually changed their rationale for these actions, from fentanyl to taxes on U.S. tech giants, to certification of U.S. aircraft, to the sharing of tolls of a bridge that Canada built and paid for, to our dairy policy, to provincial decisions not to sell American alcohol during the trade war, to a television advertisement that quoted Ronald Reagan, to smoke from wildfires while they threatened our communities. Another prominent justification for U.S. tariffs has been their claim that since the United States runs, quote, a trade deficit with Canada, we were ripping them off. Also a quote. But the U.S.'s narrow merchandise trade deficit only exists because the U.S. buys so much of its energy from Canada. Canada fuels American growth, supplying 99% of their natural gas imports, 85% of their electricity imports, 60% of their crude oil imports. I don't think they want us to stop sending any of that energy.
What does that mean? The Prime Minister has said we are at war. Economic war, but it's war nonetheless. And there's going to be people that suffer from this war. Was he loosely implying that Canada might shut off the hydro? Was that a real thing? Because that is escalating to a whole different level. But then again, I suppose if we have no relationship, if this is a war, do we use absolutely everything we've got? Well, I'll tell you what, there's some that feel no, we should not. There's still some out there that say we should use a little bit of restraint. And there's a lot of people out there that believe a couple of different things. Number one, the House of Commons should absolutely be recalled right away. If we're at war, the House of Commons must be sitting and our politicians must be debating. And that goes for the provincial legislatures as well. They should be, and their laser focus should be right now, removing all interprovincial trade barriers. I know there's a lot of Canadians that think this was supposed to be done last Canada Day, 2025. It must be done by now. A shockingly small amount has been done. There are still a ton of interprovincial trade barriers that the premiers just can't work out. Right now, I think all provincial legislatures should be sitting, and it should be expected of them unanimously and immediately repeal every single interprovincial trade barrier. Friends, we're going at it. We're going to war here. There's not going to be an 11th hour deal by the looks of it. We're going to go to matching dollar for dollar tariffs with the Americans. That is going to have a tremendous impact on our economy. No one is going to feel it more than the middle class, and it's going to be hard on our economy. We are staring down the barrel of a very serious situation, and our politicians need to take it seriously. This is political gold for them. Gold. None of our politicians that are sitting right now have had more success than when they had Donald Trump to fight with, because all they need to do is invoke Donald Trump and people get all riled up and rally behind them. No matter how good or bad a job they've done on every other file, they get unconditional support because they want to stand up to Donald Trump. Maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't, but I think that's an emotional reaction to a situation that we have every right to be upset about. Or do we? Because right now, as we talk, we still don't know what we walked away from. The Canadian people haven't been told anything. Take my word for it, from the Prime Minister isn't going to cut it this time. He already got caught misleading or flat out lying to the Canadian people about the deal that he did with Donald Trump over the Gordie Howe Bridge. We all know that. That's not in dispute. He was not honest with the Canadian people. So I'm not just going to take his word for it right here. I need to know for sure, what did Canada walk away from? What was worse than 50% matching tariffs and a war with America? What did we walk away from?
And if you look more broadly at the comprehensive U.S.-Canada trade balance, which includes the many services from finance to entertainment that we buy from the United States, that shows a persistent American trade surplus. Most fundamentally, trade is about building mutual strength, creating a relationship that benefits both countries. For example, Canada is the largest customer for U.S. cars. In fact, we buy more American-built cars and trucks than the United Kingdom, Japan, and China combined. It's the same for American steel products. Canada is also the largest customer for 26 U.S. states and a top 3 customer for 45 U.S. states. Last year, Americans sold almost $600 billion in goods and services to Canadians. That's more than $1.6 billion every single day. On the other hand, Canadian exports to the United States lower costs for American families. In contrast, tariffs are taxes. Taxes which are ultimately paid by U.S. consumers.
And soon to be paid by Canadian consumers as well. The Prime Minister doing a pretty good job here. I'll give him credit. He gives a good speech when he has to. The Prime Minister here is trying to lay out the argument here that we're not ripping off the Americans. And frankly, I'm not sure that we are. I think the Prime Minister might even be right there. I don't know that we're ripping them off, but there are certainly certain sectors and certain trade irritants that we have in place that the Americans don't like and want to reset. They have a right to do that, just like we have a right to control our terms. I can't believe that after 18 months, we've ended up in a trade war. What is that famous quote from a British politician? I wish I could remember the name so I could cite it for you. War is a failure of diplomacy every single time. Where's the deal? How did this not get done in a year and a half? Or is it possible that we never wanted a deal? It seems like we got real close on this one, just like we did last November. We got real close, and then right at the end, we walked away. Did the Premier say, we will not support you if you sign this deal? Was the Prime Minister left blowing in the wind, and the Premiers actually nixed this one? Or did something happen? Did the Americans throw in a last-minute request, like the Canadians are saying? Was there a last-minute ask or add-on where we just said, nope, that's the straw that broke the camel's back, we're not doing it? I'd love to know more. And let me tell you, by the way, books will be written about what happened on Friday night when Canada walked away from the trade table. This is a significant, substantial period in Canada's history, and we are at a turning point right now. If we're going to war, as the Prime Minister in his own words said, this is serious and it's going to hurt. There's going to be a lot of jobs lost. I'd love to think that we did absolutely everything possible to try and resolve this. But frankly, I look around at some of our retaliatory things and it doesn't seem like we did. We also made a hell of a lot of concessions early in this negotiation, including on the Gordie Howe Bridge by the sounds of it. We made a lot of concessions and don't seem to have gotten anything for it. Typically, it's a give and take in a negotiation. And let's not forget, Donald Trump literally wrote a book on negotiating. Usually, if they want us to stop taxing their digital tech companies, we get something in return for that. I don't even know what we asked for. We really need to see the deal before we can form any opinion. And I don't think that that should be a partisan thing. I think everybody should want to know what we walked away from. I don't know that anybody should say, oh, yeah, the government is very trustworthy. We should just take their word for it and be prepared to lose our jobs. But a lot of people are.
Well, the United States has imposed a seemingly endless stream of tariffs and threatened more. Canada has, by contrast, taken several steps in good faith to try to find compromise and secure a comprehensive deal in the best interests of both Canadians and Americans. Last month, the U.S. announced that effective August 19th, it would impose 50% tariffs on a series of industries ranging from hockey equipment to clothing, cement, and beer. The only advantage of this latest threat was that it was a catalyst for more intensive negotiations. Our objectives in these latest talks have been to preserve tariff-free access to the U.S. for the vast majority of Canadian businesses. Secondly, to provide greater stability to our trade relationship. Thirdly, to significantly reduce U.S. tariffs on our key strategic industries so that Canadian businesses in these sectors would have the best access of any in the world. Fourth, protect our small and medium-sized businesses, including by removing the imminent threat of those new tariffs. And fifth, fundamentally, maintain Canada's flexibility, independence, and sovereignty so we can keep building the country Canadians want. Canada has made offers to secure a fair, comprehensive deal that would be in the best interests of Canadians. We were willing to drop our remaining retaliatory tariffs on strategic sectors, particularly steel, aluminum, and autos, if the United States substantially lowered theirs to levels that made it economic for Canadian companies to export to the United States. In exchange for a fair deal, we would encourage our provinces to return U.S. alcohol to the shelves. And we would take administrative measures to protect supply management without changing the system itself, the U.S. quotas, or the tariffs that would apply. There were some things we wouldn't do. We were not prepared to compromise Canada's sovereignty or to undermine our key industries.
There's a lot of innuendo in there. And again, we really need to understand more about what was on the table. The way this is being presented is that we were willing to negotiate. Sounds like we didn't take things very seriously until the threat of 50% tariffs kicked in. I mean, the Prime Minister acknowledged that. When that threat kicked in, we started negotiating. Okay, great. What have we been doing for a year and a half? But let's put a pin in that. The Prime Minister seems to be suggesting that the Americans wanted too much. Which key sectors was the Prime Minister so interested in protecting, and how much at threat were they going to be? The Prime Minister is saying he wanted to compromise on our sovereignty. That's a strange thing to say when we don't exactly know the details of it.
Now, in recent weeks, there had been important progress made towards a possible agreement, an agreement that would have reinforced Canada's position as having the best deal in the world with the United States, including by securing the best terms for each of our most important strategic sectors and by providing greater certainty about our future trading relationship. And while we believed earlier this week that we were moving towards a mutually beneficial agreement, in recent days, the United States proposed new terms that were uneconomic, unfair, and undermined the net benefits for Canada and called into question the reliability of any deal. In short, they asked too much and they offered too little. More fundamentally, the cumulative effect of U.S. demands revealed the limits of their commitment to a true economic partnership. As I said earlier, as a result, last evening I suspended trade negotiations with the United States and directed our negotiators to return to Ottawa. I want to thank Minister LeBlanc and our chief negotiator, Janice Charette, their team. They've worked hard, in good faith, right up to the last minute to defend the interests of Canadians. Now, Canada will match Washington's new tariffs dollar for dollar in order to protect Canadian workers, farmers, families, and businesses. Our response will be concentrated in sectors such as steel, dairy, appliances, agricultural equipment, pulp and paper, and electronics. We'll also include products that are currently subject to unjustified Section 232 and 338 tariffs. This is a focused response to protect and defend our industries and allow them to compete with U.S. products in the Canadian market. In the coming days, we'll release details of these new tariff measures which will come into force the Tuesday after Labor Day. Let me be clear. We take this step reluctantly. Reluctantly because we recognize that some of these measures will raise costs and reduce choice for Canadians. Reluctantly because we recognize that some U.S. companies and some U.S. states are innocent bystanders in a dispute that they did not want. Reluctantly because this trade dispute is preventing Canada and America from doing so much good that we could do together. But at the same time, we take this step confident that it is in the best interest of Canada, and that by rejecting a bad deal, by standing up for Canada, by focusing on what we can control, we will build Canada strong for all. Building at home and diversifying trade abroad is not our plan B. It has been our plan A from the start. Canada will continue to pursue this path to build Canada strong because it's right and because it's working. We're moving rapidly to build major infrastructure. We've already referred 27 nation-building initiatives to the new Major Projects Office, new ports, mines, energy corridors from every region of the country that now represent $500 billion in new private investment. Projects that will help Canada build bigger, move faster, and trade more with the world.
I just want to point out here, now the Prime Minister is getting into his political stuff. This is him trying to give you all the feel-good things like, oh, we're building and things like that. Let's talk about this Prime Minister's track record on that. All announcement, no shovels. That's the thing. You can plainly look around and see that's just not reality. The Prime Minister insists, we're building, we're doing this, we're doing that. Everybody can plainly see nothing is happening. The biggest joke in this country is the housing. Remember that? Remember all these houses that they were going to build? What was it? They said they were going to build 1 million a year or something like that. Housing starts are down again this year, and they're projected to go down again next year before they even start to climb. We can't even try and hit the targets that Mark Carney himself set out until 2030. This Prime Minister has zero credibility when it comes to building Canada strong because nothing is built. It's been 1.5 years. He said, elect me. We're going to build Canada strong, and I'm going to negotiate a deal with the Americans. We're going to diversify our trade relationship. Even that's misleading. Google how many new trade deals Canada has signed in the last 18 months. Tell AI, filter out the ones that were already in progress from when Trudeau was Prime Minister. Nothing is done, and no Canadian should feel like they are, or like things have been done. We said we'd get rid of the interprovincial trade barriers. That's not done. They're still in effect. If we're going to build Canada strong, and he's going to start up all this political nonsense again, build Canada strong, elbows up, protect Ontario, all that stuff, Canadians need to see the results right away. Get the scaffolding up, get the steel ordered, get the aluminum ordered, whatever we're going to need for these projects, order it right now and get a shovel in the ground as quickly as possible and tell people what's actually being done, because right now Canadians don't see it. Are we just going to start now, Canada strong, or did it start 1.5 years ago, like the Prime Minister said? Nothing is built, nothing is done, almost nothing new has happened. We should be deeply concerned about that. The default, and I think even those who are more left-leaning, all assumed we would eventually come to a deal with the Americans and all this drama would go away. Well, it's not going away now. We blew it up. The Americans say they're going to move on and start doing deals with other countries. They're moving on too, by the way, just so you know. They don't have time for us in their agenda right now. They're moving on, I think it's to Brazil to negotiate a deal with them. This, again, is a very serious situation, and we need to take it seriously. I don't want to hear any more announcements from this government without a date attached to it and verification that what they say they're going to do, they do. Because they make a lot of announcements, they spend a hell of a lot of money, and Canadians aren't seeing any results here. Look around. Are you seeing it? Does it feel like we're in a wartime effort to build? All announcements, no actual tangible things that Canadians can point to saying, good. We're well on our way to protecting our sovereignty and making ourselves our own best customer. Nobody can do that. Not one person. Nobody.
Hey, it's Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. Now, I was looking for fun ways to tell you that Mint's offer of unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month is back. So I thought it would be fun if we made $15 bills. But it turns out that's very illegal. So there goes my big idea for the commercial. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.
Just last Monday in St. John's, the governments of Canada, Quebec, Newfoundland, and Labrador launched the single largest investment in Canada's history to build the largest clean energy project in North America ever. Une deuxième Bay James. It will produce enough clean electricity to power every single vehicle in Canada. We're building our economy while taking charge of our security by investing $500 billion into our defense, expanding our shipyards, growing our aerospace industry, increasing our cyber capabilities. And we're realizing Canada's full potential as an energy superpower in nuclear, LNG, renewables, and low-carbon oil and gas. These are the initiatives that are the future of our country.
Are they? This Prime Minister is still an extremely green individual. And those green technologies that he insists Canada has to have, they're very intimately tied to companies that are very intimately tied to the Prime Minister, not the least of which is Brookfield. Are we going to bet our entire future on green energy? And that's not to take anything away from the deal that was worked out for Churchill Falls. Great, it's going to produce a lot of electricity. Hopefully it creates a lot of jobs in the process because we've got to completely expand our national grid. What are we doing about that? Who's doing it? Would it have been just easier to build another couple nuclear reactors? I don't know. I don't know that we can trust the arsonists to put out the fire. We're in the situation we're in right now because we've had 10 years of liberal government and nothing got done. The keep it in the ground mentality was crazy. We still haven't repealed the bad laws that Albertans were so upset about. Not all of them. We are still not building the pipelines that we need to build across Canada, taking advantage of our oil. We're still not doing that. When's that going to get done? What does this major projects office do all day? They've got, 27 projects for referral? Approve them all right now. Sight unseen. They're just done. Approve them. We've got to get moving. We're in a war now. So now we've got to be self-sufficient. Now we've got to rely on this government to do what they say they were going to do. We're going to do a year and a half ago. All this time they've been saying they were going to do it. When are they going to do it? What's going on? How long? If somebody loses their job tomorrow because of these tariffs, how long until they can get a job in a factory building windmills? When's that opening up? I just don't have much faith in this government, guys. And there's a long list of things that were announced that never actually happened. The government took the press for it. They took the credit for it. They spent the money, but where's the product? You can't really point to much.
Canada is now the best connected economy in the world. Over the last year, we have signed more than 20 trade and security deals across 5 continents. We completed our most recent deal with the United Arab Emirates in a record 47 days. Canadian businesses now enjoy tariff-free access to 1.5 billion consumers. Over the next 6 months, we'll double that number through new trade deals from ASEAN to India. Canada is building such unparalleled market access because we're trusted, because we're reliable, and because we have what the world wants. That's why the world is coming to our door. In just 3 weeks, we'll host the first Canadian Investment Summit in Toronto. The summit is attracting the world's largest investors who collectively manage over $100 trillion in assets. When they get here, they'll find a Canadian economy that has never been more connected or more ambitious. This fall, in Budget 2026, we will go further to make Canada even more competitive and attractive for businesses and strategic investors to build, invest, and grow. The new U.S. tariffs are designed to hurt us and divide us. They're a miscalculation. They're a miscalculation because Canadians will always take care of each other. We know we're stronger together. In the last year and a half, Canadians have met this moment with resolve, with purpose, with strength. In many ways, vacationing in national parks, buying Canadian products, choosing Canadians, small acts of solidarity, repeated millions of times that make a statement.
That's just nonsense. The Prime Minister himself didn't take a vacation in Canada. He went to Tuscany for over a week. I don't accept that. This rah-rah Team Canada stuff, that's meant to inspire an emotional reaction from you. That is meant to try and pull on your patriotic heartstrings and, yeah, we're going to fight, fight, fight. I don't know if a lot of Canadians have a lot of fight left in them. They've been doing this for 18 months. The cost of living has done nothing but go up. This government has done nothing to help. What they did do has just been a piss in the ocean. They're little trinkets here and there. Little handouts, tiny ones, only to a few Canadians. It hasn't helped. Inflation is going crazy still. Every month, things get more and more expensive. And what this government is promising, already teeing up Budget 2026, which technically comes out at the end of 2026, it'll be almost 2027. Already teeing it up. We're going to do more to attract investment. They're going to spend a hell of a lot of our money. That's what they're going to do. They're going to spend a hell of a lot of money. It's going to go to corporations. It's going to go to big business. It is not going to go to regular Canadian people. How about some tax cuts? Immediate tax cuts. Pierre Poilievre is calling for immediate relief. Make sure that the gas tax holiday here is permanent or at least extended till next year. We're in a weird time where Canadians are at the end of their rope. They have no patience for this and no money for it. This Prime Minister is going to try and make this a big patriotic moment, but he's not going to feel it. He's a multimillionaire. All these politicians that come out and say, well, this is going to hurt, but it needs to be done. They're not feeling it. Do you know how much money Doug Ford has? You know how much money Mark Carney has? And the list goes on. A lot of these are very well-off individuals, and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. They're not going to feel it nearly as much as a single parent raising a kid, trying to afford rent, pay their hydro, keep the Disney Plus on for the kid, and pay their car payments. And God forbid they actually want to take a vacation once a year. Stuff like that, a lot of that's out the window. And they're trying to do it on $70,000 a year. They're going to feel it. Mark Carney, the premiers, they're not going to feel it. They're doing fine. And I think that there's a lot of people egging this fight on that don't really have a dog in the fight because they're not going to feel it. They're doing okay. It's the ones that aren't doing okay that I'm worried about because they're the ones who are going to suffer. This is the end of the Prime Minister's speech, and I'm going to do a little bit of the Q&A, but I know this has already gone on long.
We're masters of our destiny. This government is matching that spirit with $25 billion to protect Canadian workers and businesses hurt by American tariffs. We're helping small and medium-sized businesses respond by investing in equipment, in productivity, and supply chain resilience. And we're financing large companies to keep large employers operating and to retain their workers. We're helping those hardest-hit industries retool and pivot to those new international markets. And we are being our own best customer. We have the right plan to build Canada strong. We're on track, and it's working. At the same time, we recognize that some of the biggest payoffs of this plan, of this transformation, will take time. And that's why we're also focused on giving Canadians a boost today and a bridge to that better tomorrow. So we've cut taxes on incomes, on housing, and on gas. We've introduced the Canada Groceries and Essential Benefits, up to $1,890 per family, helping 12 million Canadians get ahead. We're stronger now than when the United States started this trade war. More unified, more determined, more ambitious. With the strongest fiscal position in the G7 and a resilient economy, Canada has all the resources we need to pivot and to prosper. Growth is accelerating. We're projected to have the second fastest rate in the G7 this year and next. We are creating jobs in this economy at 4 times the rate of the United States. Our non-U.S. exports are up sharply. They're on track to double over the next decade. Foreign direct investment in Canada is at its highest level in 2 decades. It's running at twice the rate of our nearest G7 competitor. Canada now ranks as the most attractive country in the world for infrastructure investment. Last spring, I warned that America is trying to break us so they can own us. And I promise that that will never, ever happen. We are keeping that promise. Canada is becoming stronger and less dependent on America. We are already giving ourselves more than they can take away. And we are just getting started. As we observed earlier this week in St. John's, Canadians don't submit to the weather. We thrive in it. We don't wait to see which way the wind's blowing or surrender ourselves to the waves to be storm-tossed by events. We set our own course. We make our own weather. Building Canada strong for all. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Yeah, that's going to be a problem, I think, because a lot of Canadians, they're inclined to get behind our Prime Minister. War, right? War means you get behind your leaders. Hey, we've got to do something. Absolutely. The trade deal, we elected Mark Carney to get a deal done, and he couldn't get the job done. I hope he at least considered stepping down because he broke his signature promise to Canadians. There's a lot of numbers there. A lot of them are based on projections. A lot of them are averages. In reality, our economy is a fraction the size of the American economy. We were much stronger together. It's very, very disappointing to me that we couldn't find a way to integrate those economies even more and make it work for everybody. There's a lot of emotion speaking here right now, and it's not helping. And some of that is coming from our leaders, really, really trying to gaslight Canadians. I agree with the sentiment of Canada Strong. We need to diversify our trade relationships. We need to stand up for ourselves. We need to protect our sovereignty. We need to do all of those things. But we can't be stupid about this. Do you know how many Canadians are suffering right now, and no one in Ottawa or no one in your provincial legislature, whatever province you're listening in, they don't seem to understand that Canadians are at the end of their rope. We don't have a lot of fight left in us here. So whatever's going to happen here has got to happen quick. It's got to get done quickly. We need to see results. And if the solution is going to be, we're going to become a member of the European Union, just submit to it, then get to it. If the solution is going to be, we're our own best customer, then show it. Enough's enough. It's been a year and a half. And now Canadians are about to start losing jobs like crazy. And by the way, all this elbows up, rah-rah spirit, go Team Canada approach, how quickly is that going to change when factories start shutting down? Very, very quickly. And it's going to happen. How much is that going to change when you lose your job? How much is it going to change when your kid continues to not be able to find a job? Jobs are not flooding in here right now, and that's what these people don't seem to understand. They can flash up all these numbers and projections and this and that, and the G7, blah, 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 all they want. But Canadians aren't seeing or feeling that right now, and nobody is feeling particularly secure. This government has a perception problem because they can put out all the stats they want to say how wonderful and rosy things are, but the reality is far from it on the ground. The middle class are struggling. It's about to get a hell of a lot worse. And these guys want to wage war with regular Canadians' jobs, then they better damn well have a plan to replace those jobs quick. Because there aren't many mortgage payments that they can miss before they lose their home. And that's just a reality of where we are. Friends, I think that's basically it for my commentary. I'm going to play a little bit of the Q&A. You can hear reporters trying to get answers from the Prime Minister about what we left on the table. What it is that the Americans wanted, what it was that we said was so bad that we can't accept that. You're going to hear a little bit of that with limited commentary. I want to let you know in case this is where you dive out, because now you've heard what the Prime Minister wanted you to hear. Those were his prepared remarks. I do not edit the Prime Minister when he speaks. He's the Prime Minister of our country, and when he speaks, Canadians should hear it. I don't edit it. I don't manipulate it in any way, but full disclosure, I do edit out the French. It's an English podcast intended to be listened to in an audio form in the car. So I edit out the French, but that's it. You heard everything the Prime Minister had to say. Now you're going to hear a little Q&A. Next episode of the pod, I believe, is going to be the American perspective. U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer. He talked after trade talks ended. You should hear what the Americans are saying. I was just in America. So the reason I'm losing my voice here, I just got back from Las Vegas. I talked to a lot of Americans. Everyone from blackjack dealers to Uber dealers to waitresses and waiters. Ushers at the concert I went to. I talked to them all. You might be surprised to hear what Americans are saying about Canadians, if they even know that this is going on. Because, by the way, this is not a big story in America. Not by any means. They got a lot of other stuff going on. They're not even thinking about this for the large part. But there's a couple things in particular that you might find interesting. I hope you can listen to that next episode. Then I'm going to put out the Premier's response. Hear what Doug Ford, Danielle Smith, Wab Kinew, and David Eby in particular had to say. Might even throw in some Tim Houston for the East Coast listeners. You should hear them. I'm going to keep doing episodes for as long as I need to do, leading up to the new season of After 9, which is going to start the Tuesday after Labor Day. These are bonus episodes. I'm not committing to one every single day, but I think that there's a gap in information getting to Canadians, and a lot of people are having a hard time trying to figure out how they really feel about what they're hearing and seeing. First couple days was a very emotional thing. Damn it, they attacked us. We got to fight back and go to war. Okay, well, before we go into a war, do we have enough ammunition to fight it? Because there's a lot of Canadians, again, that are at the end of their rope financially. And I don't know that this government fully understands that. Mark Carney's not going to feel it. Doug Ford's not going to feel it. Danielle Smith's not going to feel it. David Eby's not going to feel it. Wab Kinew's not going to feel it. You're going to feel it. They're sending us to war when they don't have to fight themselves because they're doing fine. It's the rest of the middle class that's really suffering. Friends, here's a little bit of the Q&A. I'll catch you right back here with another episode very soon. They're going to come out quick, a couple a day, until I get you completely caught up on this situation. And by the way, you can count on me for the best I can. Even though I have a bias, I'm going to try and call it as balls and strikes. Be honest with you about what I'm hearing and seeing. It's my opinion. We might disagree, and that's perfectly fine if we disagree. No problem at all. I'm interested in hearing what you have to say about this. I'd love to hear your take. But we need to stay informed, and what you're getting from the mainstream media is not that. You just heard the entire Prime Minister's speech. None of our networks covered it. They pulled out a few key points, and amazing. You get one editorial board at CBC, you get one at CTV, yet they all centered on the exact same clips to show on the news. Weird how that happens, right? Have yourselves a great day. I will catch you right back here very soon with the next episode of Scott Fox After 9. In the lead up to the new season, this is complete coverage of the trade war.
On passe aux questions. We'll have 2 questions. First question, Mackenzie.
Hello, Prime Minister. Mackenzie Gray with Global News. I'm hoping you can tell us what the specific last-minute changes that the Americans proposed that made a deal in Tenenbaum.
Thank you for the question. Look, I would say 2 things. One is there are some specifics, and I'll give you some examples, but it was also a cumulative aspect, as I mentioned in my remarks, about the willingness dans l'ensemble in total to enter into a true economic partnership. But in terms of specifics, I'll give you 3, and I know there's other questions. First, with respect to the auto industry, both in terms of the level of the tariffs, the treatment of Canadian content, so Canadian parts, Canadian steel, Canadian content in vehicles, the scope of the tariffs. The Americans wanted to limit it to autos only, not include medium and heavy autos and light trucks, to be more specific, not include medium and heavy duty trucks, which is a big change, obviously. And with respect to Ford's new plant, for example, in Oakville, which is F-350s, 450s, 550s, they would have been excluded. GM Silverado, same thing, would have been excluded from that. No rationale, just for exclusion. So effectively moving into a series of terms that would made the production more uneconomic over time. Okay, so that's a change. That restriction, that clarification, that precision was a change. The U.S. introduced in the last hours, efforts to restrict our ability to have other trade deals. You heard me say a moment ago what we've accomplished in the last year: 20 new deals, economic and security partnerships, the prospect of doubling our market access because we believe in free trade. We're the partner of choice in many respects for countries around the world, and the Americans wanted to restrict that. They had language that they wanted to restrict that. Unacceptable. And I'll give you a third, et peut-être on peut discuter plus en français. Continual efforts, always resisted, as I said in my remarks, and always will be resisted, efforts to restrict our protections of our language, our culture, and in effect, our sovereignty. So elements coming in, ramping up, any of them individually, but collectively put us in a position where what had been on a trajectory, absent those elements, for a fair deal, a good deal for Canadians, not perfect, but a good deal, a deal we would not accept.
Follow-up.
What a mess. Wow. Do you feel any more informed? It seems that the Prime Minister is saying that suggesting the U.S. doesn't necessarily want to have to put French labeling on their products that get shipped to Quebec or to Canada in general is somehow a threat to our sovereignty. Also suggesting the U.S. wanted to limit our ability to do trade deals with other countries. Keep those two things in mind. Keep them in mind, because I know a couple of things here that I'm not saying on the pod because I haven't completely verified them. But keep those two things in mind. It comes down to dairy. It comes down to French language on labels. And it also comes down to Canada's relationship with China and Canada's relationship with countries that want backdoor access to the U.S. market. Keep those things that the Prime Minister said in mind. He himself said it. Rewind it if you want to hear it again. He said it. All of those things individually aren't necessarily that bad. But altogether, then we had to blow up the trade deal. Okay, just remember those. Those ones are going to come up again. I'm telling you.
Question suivie.
Was Howard Lutnick's involvement in the last days an impediment to getting a deal?
It's a question for the U.S. administration. Ultimately, I'm responsible for the decisions of the Canadian government. We take it as a cabinet, but I certainly bear those responsibilities. And so the head of the U.S. administration, the president, bears the responsibility for the decisions they take. But I will say this, which is that the Canadian team, unified, the individuals you see here, their team members, our ambassador in Washington, my chief of staff, unified, talking together, the clerk of the Privy Council, everyone in the loop, everyone knows what our objectives are, collective decision making. As I say, ultimately, I and the cabinet bear responsibility for those decisions, but unity. You cannot say that about the United States administration. And as a consequence, last point, and I'll go to your colleagues, because I think this is important. In these last few days, we were drilling down on specific issues where that might have been papered over, the differences in the administration, if there were indeed differences. Ultimately, there's a decision maker at the top. And in drilling down on those, a number of those issues that I just referenced became very clear, and there was not a deal that we would sign. Thank you.
Good morning, Prime Minister.
Morning.
David Baxter with the Canadian Press. There's a lot of people watching this right now who are rightfully worried about losing their jobs, losing their businesses in this trade war.
Yep.
What's your message to those people who are worried about becoming collateral damage?
Well, yeah, thank you, David. A couple of things. First, the people in these industries, particularly the industries that are being hit today by these 50% tariffs. Many of them are small, medium-sized businesses. They're in a wide range of industries, spread across the country, concentrated Ontario, Quebec, British Columbia, by and large. That's not exclusive, but it's that. And they have very much been top of mind. Top of mind, it's one of the reasons why we work so hard and stretch so far to try to get a deal. Now, but not a deal at any price. not a deal on any timetable. So a couple messages for those people. The first is we're going to hit back. Okay, we're going to hit back and we are going to provide tariff protection where we can, where it's relevant for some of those industries. Steel steel products and others is in some cases an example of that. We're going to provide full tariff protection there to prevent Americans businesses coming in and taking business. So that provides some. But more fundamentally, we will provide support and we will do whatever it takes to support these businesses. We'll be releasing details of this early next week alongside our tariff actions to support these businesses. And we will support these businesses for as long as it takes. In other words, beyond the life of this U.S. administration. Okay, so there's various mechanisms that we've worked up. We'll give all the details in a few days, but think of working through our regional development agencies, also working through the Business Development Bank of Canada, and those will be the focal points for a limited number of easy-to-use but very effective programs that are going to help these businesses work through this period, pivot as necessary, because part of what we're seeing is what the potential future limits are to the American market.
They're going to introduce a wage subsidy, just like they did during COVID. They're going to release low or no interest loans for businesses. And if you're a small business owner, just know you're not getting that. You're not going to get it. That support is not for you. That support is for big corporations. That's who's going to take advantage of it. Ones with lobbyists and great lawyers and accountants. That's who's going to get it. Canadians are going to lose their jobs. Some businesses are going to collect a ton of money in government subsidies, tons of it, and it's going to get abused. It will not funnel back down to a lot of Canadian workers. It just won't. We saw it during COVID. It doesn't work. This Prime Minister needs a better plan than that. But we'll wait and hear what the details are.
And in the last couple of days, we heard some pushback from some of the premiers, such as Wab Kinew. Susan Holt said she was reluctant to put liquor back on the shelves. Quebec's Christine Fichette was saying she hadn't made up her mind on what Quebec's response was going to be yet. And Doug Ford was uncharacteristically silent, but he did send you a letter outlining his red lines last Monday. Just did any pushback from the premiers play a factor in the decision to end talks with the U.S.?
Thanks for the question. First, let me say a couple of things. I mean, the short answer is no. So just to give you that perspective. But, and this is an important but, the dialogue with the premiers in the last few days, over the course of the last 18 months, and the partnership that we've established with the premiers is crucial, fundamentally important. The essence of our First Minister's discussion 2 days ago, we're going to have another one this afternoon, but the essence of our First Minister's discussion 2 days ago was that it's our judgment, as we told Canadians, that we were on a path to a potential deal that would give Canada not just the best deal overall, but the best deal in all of our strategic sectors, that the price for that deal, in our judgment, was worth paying. We still had to come back to the premiers with the exact specifics, so it's entirely reasonable for Premier Fichette or a premier to say, well, I want to see everything before I make that determination. But that our judgment was going to be that it's going to be worth to take steps, a couple of steps that provinces needed to do in order to get the overall deal. I'll go back to Mr. Baxter's question, not least because of the potential impact that we will now be fighting against on these small and medium-sized businesses here. Okay, so that was the discussion. I would, as chair of that meeting, there was a consensus that that's what we would do, subject to finishing the negotiation. Now, they didn't have to make that determination Wednesday, I guess it was, when we spoke, because we hadn't finalized all the terms of the deal. We were still negotiating the deal. And as it turns out, as I've just described, that the Americans changed a number of those terms, introduced new elements, made it uneconomic. And so we're not asking the premiers to do anything today except work together to support our businesses and build the country strong. And I'll underscore that last point, which, and I said this on Monday in St. John's, for the future of the country, the Churchill Agreement, Quebec and Newfoundland and Labrador, supported by the federal government, that agreement and those initiatives are the most important initiatives for the future of our country. As important as trade is with the U.S. and as dramatic as the issues are and the response that we have to give in certain industries, what we're doing ourselves, premiers, the federal government, truly Canadians, is far, far more important. It dominates. Thank you.
What a difference between Mark Carney reading a speech and Mark Carney speaking off the cuff. What a mess. The Prime Minister there saying, no, the premiers didn't have anything to do with it. Here's the way I see it, and this is just my opinion. Mark Carney went to the premiers because they had a deal. He praised both sides for the great work that they had done in negotiations. He went to the premiers. He told them the deal. The premiers don't want a deal either. They either want everything that they want, or they want to keep this fight going because it's great for them politically. And this is great for them politically. They don't have to worry about healthcare. They don't have to worry about education. They don't have to worry about transit. They don't have to worry about anything. As long as they've got people hopping mad at Donald Trump, they get a pass. They don't have to deal with their actual job. The premiers love this. They're getting on American television. They've got great polling numbers, and all because they oppose Donald Trump. It's not because they're doing anything particularly well in their province. A lot of them will get reelected because of this Donald Trump trade war. But you solve this problem, you work out a deal with the Americans, and we all get back to everything's kumbaya. Now our leaders got to focus on their actual job. I'll bet you the vast majority of Canadian premiers would not get reelected. They wouldn't. Not without the boogeyman down south. They don't have a fight to fight. They've got to actually deal for their disgraceful track record on taking down interprovincial trade barriers, the state of our healthcare system, and so many other issues. Friends, I'm going to leave it there. Have yourselves a great one. I'll catch you right back here in a few hours with another episode of Scott Fox After 9. Remember, hit subscribe so you get these episodes as soon as they drop, and please feel free. Share them. If you know somebody who's got a long drive coming up, maybe if they've been away and they want to get caught up on what's going on, forget the commentary. Even if you disagree with me, the Prime Minister's whole speech is right here. I'll see you soon.
Oh, yeah, look at my life. Hey now, yeah. Oh, yeah, look at my life out here on the road. Oh, yeah, look at my life. Hey now, yeah. Oh, yeah, look at my life out here on the road.
Some people use ChatGPT to answer questions. Others use it to get real work done. With ChatGPT Work, you bring the goal, plus real inputs like briefs, notes, files, feedback, data, and project plans. It can help turn them into an analysis, tracker, deck outline, prototype, or workflow you can review and keep shaping. You stay in control, giving direction and choosing the final output. Put ChatGPT to work on your most ambitious ideas and projects. Get started at chatgpt.com by selecting Work Mode. Available on Plus and Pro plans.
There are exciting things happening at your local CVS. Shop new extra big deals with Extra Care every 2 weeks. No coupon needed. Plus, get access to exclusive sale prices, personalized deals, and more as a member. Extra Care is the way to save at CVS. Join for free online or in-store and start saving. Visit your local CVS store or cvs.com/extra big deals for this week's deals.